Hello and welcome to today's session, just brief session, 30 minutes or less session on Canvas modules. This will be an overview of modules for Canvas. My name is Brandon Taylor, and I'm one of your friendly neighborhood instructional designers. And so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Please feel free to ask questions as we move along. So here's today's agenda and objectives. After this session, you'll be able to create a Canvas module, and modules are equivalent to folders in Blackboard. There aren't content folders in Canvas. There are folders for files, but as far as the content is organized via modules. And you'll also be able to modify or manage Canvas modules as well. So to edit them, rearrange them, etc. So before we get full into the presentation, I just wanted to share these resources with you. These resources you'll be able to use not just for the topics today, but for all of your Canvas interests and needs, pretty much. And so the first resource is the Canvas guides, and these are video guides as well as text-based guides. And so you can use your QR code app on your phone or tablet and focus in on this QR code, and it will take you to the URL down here below. So if you don't know how to do that, or your QR code app or camera isn't working, you can feel free to copy these resources in websites and bookmark them or add them to your favorites. The next resource is Rush's Canvas info site, which is where we keep all of the latest and greatest information about the Canvas migration at Rush. And again, you can scan this QR code with your phone or tablet, or note the URL below. And I'll share this slide again and put these in the chat. And then finally, but definitely not least, City's website, where we have a wealth of instructional design and technology information. And there is a Canvas section there as well. So you can feel free to scan this QR code as well, or note the URL below. So those are some resources to go ahead and get us started. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and we're going to go ahead and switch. I'm going to type these URLs in the chat just so you can have them with it, so you can make sure you have these websites in the handy for you. So if you give me a moment, I will paste these in the chat. So the first one I'll post is the link to the Canvas guides. And the next one I'll put in the chat is the Rush's LMS website. Again, that has the latest and greatest on our Canvas migration site. And then finally, I'll paste the resources from the link to the city website. Okay, so those are in the chat. I'll go ahead and share my screen again and just give you a quick overview of what these sites look like. So again, this is the Canvas resource instructor or guide. So it has the Canvas basic guide, the instructor guide, there's a student guide, and also the video guide. So these videos are nice as well. Here's the Rush LMS website. So there's a link to log into Canvas. You can click on that. Everyone should have a Canvas login. Should I say all faculty should have a Canvas login? If you don't, you can feel free to contact us. And then information on the tentative schedule, a timeline, as well as training for next week. So we try to keep this updated. You can check here. And then over here, we have the training for the rest of the month. So you can feel free to peruse that. And all of the meetings or workshops will be at the same URL for Zoom. So we'll keep the same Zoom session that you use for today and all city training. So we keep that the same there. And then finally, the city website. So you may already be familiar with that. There's a Canvas section on the city website. So there's some information there, some recordings to the others. So there are a wealth of Canvas resources, both human and other resources to help you with your Canvas journey. So next I'll play a short video. I'll make sure I'm sharing my sound, which provides a brief introduction or overview to Canvas. So I'll go ahead and play that.
In this video, you will learn how to create and manage modules in your course. Modules are used to organize your course content or create a learning path for students. To access modules, click the Modules link in Course Navigation. To create a new module, click the Add Module button. Then type a name for your module in the Name field. If you would like to prevent students from accessing the module until a specific date and time, select the Lock Until option. To set the unlock date, type in a date and time or select a date and time from the calendar. Click the Add Prerequisite link to indicate another module that must be completed before a student can access this module. Note that you will only see the Add Prerequisite link if you have created at least 2 modules. Prerequisites can be added or modified later if needed. To create the module, click the Add Module button. After a module is created, you can add content to it by clicking the Add button. Click the Add drop-down menu to select the type of content. You can add an assignment, quiz, file, content page, discussion, text header, external URL, and external tool or LTI application. Next, click the title of the item you'd like to add to the module, or select the New Item option to create a new content item. If you choose the New Item option, you will need to complete the empty fields that appear. To indent the item in your module, click the Indentation drop-down menu. Click the Add Item button and the content will be added to your module. In the Module Options menu, you can edit module settings, move module contents, move the module, delete the module, or duplicate the module. Once you have added module items, you can add requirements, which lay out actions that must be completed before a student can progress in the module. To add requirements, click the Options icon for a module, then click Edit. Next, click the Add Requirement link. Note that content must already be added to a module before you will be able to add an associated requirement. You can then select to have students complete all requirements or just one requirement from the list. If you select the option for students to complete all requirements, you can choose to have students complete the requirements in sequential order. Click the Requirement drop-down menu to select an item. Then, click the Action drop-down menu to select the action that is required for the item. Repeat these steps until all requirements are defined. When you're finished adding requirements, click the Update Module button. From the Module Item Options menu, you can increase or decrease indent, edit the item, duplicate the item, move the item, access Mastery Path settings if enabled, or remove the item from the module. To rearrange module items, click the drag handle and move your content to the desired location. To publish a module, click the Unpublished icon. After publishing, all items in the module will be published and students will be able to view the module. To unpublish a module, click the Published icon. You can also publish or unpublish individual content items within each module by clicking the item's Publish or Unpublish icon. Students will only see content items and modules that have been published. You've now completed this tutorial video on modules. For additional information on this or any other topic about Canvas, please visit guides.canvaslms.com. You can also ask questions and engage with other Canvas users by visiting community.canvaslms.com.
Great. So that's a short overview of Canvas modules. And so what we'll do now is we'll actually go live into a page. So you can feel free to follow along if you have a Canvas sandbox. If not, you can request one and we can go ahead and create one for you at a later date and time. So you'll be ready to go for the next training session if you want to follow along. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And this time we're going to be in a live Canvas course in my sandbox. Okay, and I will just kind of back out a little bit so you see how to get to Canvas. So if you click on, I have it bookmarked here, it's log into Canvas. You'll get this page. I'll put this page in the chat so you can have that as well. It's also on the Rush resource page. And so your login will be your full Rush email address and the corresponding password for your Rush email address. And then you'll see your courses show up once you log in, whatever course you're in. The published courses are the ones that are live. The unpublished are the ones that are not live. So I'm going to go into my sandbox. And so this is my sandbox page. This is the front page here. And we're going to go ahead and create the modules. Again, modules in Canvas are the equivalent to or synonymous with folders in Blackboard. So we'll click on modules. And so you see we don't have any here yet. So to add a module, we'll click on this plus sign in module, which stands for add module. We'll give our module a name. I usually put the week number and then a little brief description, and we'll call this the getting started. So every good course should have a getting started module, so which module 0. You can put a lock on here, and then you'll see once we add another module, you can even put some other parameters for proceeding to a module. So then I'll click add module. And you see here we have a module, week 0, getting started. Okay. And then why don't we go ahead and create another module for week 2. So we'll add another module by clicking the plus module button. And notice now we have this add prerequisites, so you can require certain prerequisites to access modules once you have at least 2 modules. So I'll call this week 1, and this will be the introduction to something. Okay. Then I click add module again. Okay. So you see I have my week 1, week 0 module, and my week 1 module. And you can collapse these by clicking on them if you have content. So notice they're grayed out, so I haven't published these modules yet. To do that, you click on this circle with the slash to publish to make it visible. And then click on the green check mark to make it invisible again. So let's go ahead and add some items to our getting started. So to do that, we'll click on the plus sign. And when you add content or items to your module, you have the choice between assignments, quizzes, files, pages, discussion, text header, URLs, and then course links, similar to what you had in Blackboard. I'm going to add a text header, and I'm going to call it week 0 agenda. And you can indent if you like. So I'm not going to indent here just yet. So I'll click add item. And that's just a text placeholder to kind of categorize or organize items better. So under this agenda item, I'm going to add another item. And in Canvas, anything you add new is added at the end or the bottom of your content. So here I'm going to add a file. I'm just going to grab any file. So you can use files that already exist in your course. You can create a file from or add a file from your computer. So I'm going to click choose file, add a file from my computer. And I'm going to add this PowerPoint presentation template. And then I will indent one level. Don't have to worry about for your kid. If you had different folders, you could put them in different folders, but I'm not going to do that now. And then I'll click add item. And you see I have this PowerPoint presentation. The nice thing about Canvas is that typically the files that you upload appear inline in there, so students don't have to download the file. They can download them if you set that up to be downloaded, or if they right click with that. Okay. So I'll go back to the modules. And let's add one more item. So we'll go here and we can add a page. So let's just add a page because that's our next session coming up. I will create a page, give that page some information, and we'll just call it notes. And then I will indent. I recommend indenting at least one level. Click add item. And we have a notes page. Again, if we want to publish to make it visible, we can do that, but let's edit it. Well, we'll keep it like that. I'll show you how to edit in the next session. And then we'll add just one more item. Oops. Go to plus, and let's create a discussion. We'll create a topic. This is the introduction. Introduce yourself. Let's call it intros, actually. Click add item. And when we click on that, it would take us to a discussion forum. We'll go back to modules. And don't worry, we'll have sessions specifically on the discussion forums. And so we'll go ahead and publish this module. And when you publish it at the top, it automatically publishes everything. But if there's something you're still working on, you can unpublish it. So if you say your notes aren't ready yet, you can unpublish them as well. If I want to move the module, say I want week 1 above for whatever reason, if I want to keep, for example, the latest module up first, I can do that just by grabbing these grab bars here to move the modules around. Similarly, for the items within the modules, if I want to edit the module, I can click on this button here, these ellipses, and get edit, move contents, move the modules, delete, duplicate. So if you want a master module that you're going to use as a template, you can create one, which I recommend doing, and then duplicate that. The only caveat with that is that it will add like a number to the name, so you have to change the numbers that are added to the duplicates, but not a major thing, depending what you want to do. What's also nice, you can send this module to a colleague in Rush, or you can copy it to another course. And you can also share it to the Commons, which is a community resource site in Canvas. And that can be shared just at the university level or throughout the whole Canvas community. So I'll stop sharing here, and we'll just go ahead and do a quick recap. And so, again, in this session, you notice that we talked about modules in Canvas being similar to folders in Blackboard. Okay, so that's a key thing to remember. There aren't content folders in Canvas. So this session we went over creating a Canvas module. We also had an overview of modifying or managing Canvas modules. And we thank you, as always. We know you have many options for your professional development. And so we thank you for choosing the Center for Teaching Excellence and Innovation. Again, here are the QR codes for the guides, the QR code for the Canvas info site, and the QR code for the city website. I also put those links in the chat. As always, you don't have to wait for a session. You can feel free to contact us anytime if you have any questions or comments or need further assistance. Thank you and have a great day.